As promised for our weekly live chat with the charismatic and always interesting Jason Spiess. Good morning. How are you today?
Excellent on this Friday. How are you doing today? It's my son's birthday. He's 14 today, actually, now that I'm thinking out loud here. So we're going to
Nice.
we're going to be doing some Oculus stuff today. We got an Oculus Quest this week, and that is that's fun. It's addicting, and it's quite a workout. I don't know if you know what an Oculus is. For those people listening, it's a virtual reality. It goes around your face, and I've never done it before. I've always been kind of hesitant to do that, but I did it, and I think I played a little baseball, some bowling. I got my butt kicked in boxing, all kinds of stuff. Anyway,
that is cool.
Yeah, I found a game that's more my speed. It's you're like on some platform in outer space, and you get to punch stars to music from you get to pick a song and just kind of have a little bit of a workout. So I do that actually as a workout. It works out pretty nicely. Anyway, we're here to talk about energy. We're going to talk about a number of different things today here. Obviously, the Crude Life, if you go there, you can check out our daily podcast. Of course, we have the Week in Review, which will air on this radio station as well as our daily updates. One of the things that happened this week was what some are calling the first domino to fall, and it had to do with Whiting Petroleum declaring bankruptcy. Now, this is not anything new in terms of news. It is news, but a lot of people saw this coming because last July, they did lay off a third of their workforce. And then in November, they posted $1.2 billion in debt. And I've had probably 3 or 4 requests out to state officials, including the governor and the lieutenant governor of North Dakota, to ask what happens if oil companies, energy companies, start filing bankruptcy to the state of North Dakota. This was before Whiting filed, and I was not even going to use their name, actually, because the industry was in trouble because of Russia, Saudi Arabia, the shenanigans happening at OPEC. So this was before the coronavirus shock that happened through the system. And they were not very quick to respond to that. And in fact, I get ghosted by the state of North Dakota on that. I bet I've put out a half a dozen requests for state elected officials to talk about what happens when an energy company files bankruptcy and your state budget is tied to 2 oil and gas taxes at 55% of your state budget. So the way it works in North Dakota is you have a extraction tax and a production tax. And the legislative body the last few years have tied that together. In fact, I just got an email this week from a group very upset in Cass County, which is the largest voting district in the state. They're showing that the east side of the state has been carrying a lot of the west side of the state's infrastructure. And so I have a whole bunch of valuations and tax things to look at this weekend where they're showing me how this property is valued at this. And if the same property was on the east side, it would be valued at this. Therefore, the taxation is 3 times as much on the east. And I'm telling you, the war drums are beaten. It is a kerfuffle. And that's why the state's not really responded much. So the COVID-19 was something that they obviously have to focus their attention on right now. But as we're finding out, as I heard some of your updates, the world is still happening. The sun is still coming up. A lot of banks and companies are still sending bills in the mail. I just got 4 more emails and texts this morning from people who have been getting laid off. So this is a real thing, and it's going to change society as we know it. And I don't think a lot of people have a real understanding of what that's going to look like yet, and nobody does know. But I don't think people understand that life as we know it is not going to be the same going forward. Think about the restaurants. A friend of mine who works for a news organization in the upper Midwest, we were talking the other day about trying to get takeout. And, we talked about it a few weeks ago here, the trying to support the local businesses. And that was cute and that was fun for a week, but then it wanes off, and that's just the nature of the beast. So my friend pointed out that probably 25% of the restaurants that closed are probably never going to open up again. So when you start thinking about that, and these are your friends and your family and everything, you start to realize, boy, this is really going to shape our community different, this distance learning. I'm right now, as we speak, my son is downstairs. So not only am I an essential business in communications with the media, but because I'm in the oil and gas industry, I'm an essential personnel there as well. Yet, I'm a small business owner, so it's not like I get, I don't get any government money. I don't get any, petroleum council money, anything like that. So, I have to operate like every other small business, but at the same time, I have to be a teacher to help my child with his distance learning. I have to be an SRO officer to make sure that, he's not online. And where's your e-hall pass, and they start playing Fortnite and other games during the day. And even a school counselor because of peer pressures and things like that. So when we look at education, that's going to be different too. One few years ago, I had an interesting conversation with somebody, not to sidebar into education, but I will. If Rip Van Winkle, the 100-year slumber guy, he went to sleep for 100 years. If he woke up today, the only thing that he would probably recognize is our education system. So when you think of it in that perspective, maybe it is time to rethink a few things because it hasn't changed in over 100 years. Everything else has changed. Transportation, the bartering system, technology, all kinds of different things have changed.
Except for the Common Core standards.
Yeah, exactly. Our education system really hasn't. When I start thinking of like my son, he went up through a Montessori system in the younger days. I love a Montessori system where you actually, instead of just counting to 10, you actually touch and feel beads. You count and feel and touch 10 beads. So you look at it, you feel it, you see it, you say it. You do as many of the different learning mechanisms as you can, with the audio, the visual, the kinesthetic, or the role playing, if you will, the hands-on. There's different ways of learning, and not everybody learns the same. And expecting kids to sit in desks for 6-8 hours a day, I'm surprised we did it as long as we did, to be honest. Energy is going to change. You can't go online without seeing a climate change article tied to the current state of affairs. And it's interesting because the argument is very simple. Yes, there's less smog. Yes, there's less activity in the ocean, and there's less activity in the rivers, and there's pollution and this and that. Well, that's just because human activity's down. Nothing to do with fossil fuels. Minor, but it mostly has to do with human activity. So when we're talking about changing behaviors here, that's a whole different thing. So there's already interfighting in Washington. Senator Kramer was on our program last week talking about how some of the Democrats are already trying to use this as a way to implement a new world order. What did they say? This is an opportunity to roll out our plan onto the people. I'm starting to hear the word plandemic, that sort of thing. So it's and we're not even talking conspiracy theories here. We're just talking about what people are trying to do right now. And I still go back to this, that, and ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, there's a lot to be happy with right now. There's a lot to be happy about. For one, you probably get to spend some time with your family. And yeah, there might be some bills coming and you might have some stresses there, but think about it. This is the one time where you're not alone. And everybody's going to come out of this together. I don't know how that is, but that's what's different than a lot of other times, is because this is a global thing here. This is not only America. This is not only South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming. No, this is a global thing here. And there is a lot to be happy about. There's a lot to be positive about. If you're in business, there's still the same amount of money on the planet. Just go find it. If you work for somebody, Well, actually, there's a lot of things in place right now to make sure it is going to be a seamless transition. So what I'm trying to tell people is that, listen, don't be judgmental. Try to be open-minded about things. And really, everything should be on the table for you and your family. And just kind of intelligently and what works for you, take it off the table. Just start taking things off the table. That's what I'm trying to tell people in the energy industry too, is you're going to hear a lot of crazy things. And it's okay to say crazy things. It's different to act on crazy things. It's totally different to act on crazy things. But during crazy times, you're going to think crazy things. And sometimes the crazy thoughts are the ones that actually work out. So keep that in mind. I don't know. I just kind of kept talking there. So would you like to interject at this point?
I feel completely overwhelmed in everything that's going on. Honestly, I've never felt so confused looking at the current status of affairs ever, and I'm confused a lot of the time.
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, we have modern technology. You and I are talking. You're down in the Black Hills. I'm in North Dakota. A lot of our listeners are even as far as to, pretty close to Casper, Wyoming. And so, and that's just the people that are listening to radio. And then you've got a website and apps and all this other stuff that people can listen to. So there are FaceTimes, and there are ways to stay in touch with people. And
ways to be social without being physically close in proximity.
Right. And so and maybe next week, one of the things that we should talk about is the difference between being social and working social. That's a dangerous mix when you start mixing the two together, because then you don't have an escape anymore. And then you start doing crazy things because your escapism becomes really extremism.
Part of the work. That is actually a really good point. That is a very good point.
Oh, totally. You have to separate the two. And otherwise they bleed in the same. And all of a sudden you don't have a differential between your work and your personal life. And you need that separation. That's DNA. That's that's not even.
You have to have the downtime where you're not thinking about everything on your plate to get done and the stress. You have to have some kind of an escape or release.
Right. And some people might be different. Like for me, I used to be where I could go hard for 3-4 weeks, and then I would just need a day or two or a weekend to crash. And by crash, meaning just don't look at it, don't touch it, don't do anything about it. But then all of a sudden back at it, and I was better off going, dog on bone, if you will, just really, really focused, because that was my personality and that seemed to work. And that's not for everybody though. But the one thing that everybody is wired the same, you do need some escape. And that's been around since the dawn of man, whether it's, a movie or it's a walk, or for some people, extramarital affairs. That's actually why I'm having this discussion, is to try to prevent some of those things, because that's where I'm talking about some of the extremism. When your escapism no longer is a walk, you got to have a little more balance. So, and right now, people need to hear this. These are not, again, everything is on the table, including topics in energy. Because think about it, everybody from energy is working at home pretty much, except for the people out in the field, but that's different, Right. But anyway, so this week we've got a great program. We got a lot of coronavirus topics. We've got the Whiting topic, obviously, with them filing Chapter 11. We've got Devin Becker, Safety and Supply, out of Greeley, Colorado, and they've got some Wyoming offices as well. Talks about, he's deemed an essential business from the oil and gas side and from the safety side. And they've had some different deals because, FR clothing and, fall prevention was really a big part of their business. And now it's hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes, and that falls under safety. So it's a whole different market and all kinds of different things. So we keep the conversation going and also relevant to where a lot of people are giving us, kind of updates on what their businesses are doing, how they're adapting, and even an update from Canada to talk about how the Canadians are dealing with the COVID-19 shutdown. Like I said, this is a global thing. And with the oil and gas industry, what's important to remember is they really got hit from a 1-2 punch. They got hit from the Saudi Arabia, OPEC supply shock, and then the demand shock of this COVID-19 coronavirus thing really just socked it to them. And it's, again, there's a lot to be positive. Sometimes it's hard to look, but when you do, you can see it's there. And
yeah, well, and I agree. It's important to keep talking about.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, there's lots of ways to reach out and talk to people. There's lots of ways to find out how people are doing. And here's the good news. A lot of people are filing unemployment. A lot of people are filling out those forms that you need in order to get, disaster assistance and that sort of thing. So the old adage of being embarrassed about your finances right now, you get like a little bit of a pass right now. You get a little bit of a pass, but that's going to go away. That's going to go away. And right now is a time to really capitalize on those types of things that your ego may have a difficult time at another state, another time and place. So, yeah, that's all.
Well, I dig it. Well, thank you. I love your brain. You always have such great things to talk about and really awesome points of view. And I agree. I really appreciate that you're always willing to talk about some of the more difficult discussions that socially we're not always just open to talk about, So I love it.
Thank you very much. The Crude Life Week in Review can be heard on this radio station as well as a few others. Check out our website, thecrudelife.com.
You heard it. You better do it now.
See you next week.
All right.